risky business,
Yeah.
why Tom Cruise should have an Oscar,
Yeah, that's good.
right?
And
I
and
think.
that was the original thought was let's focus on the movies he was
Mhm.
nominated for and he didn't get, but we're going broader than that.
Welcome to the O Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
How's it going, Dan?
Good man. We're back. We're going to do so. This is kind of a concept piece that we've done in the past.
And it's changed shape.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. We did an episode on why you should love The Godfather 3, and then we did another episode on why you should love Solo, a Star Wars story. And we haven't really done anything in that vein since then. And then this idea popped up. It's very topical, timely, and we'll get into all of that. But I'm calling this. I think I have the perfect title for the episode, which is "Risky Business:
Yeah.
Why Tom Cruise Should Have an Oscar." Right?
And
I
and
think.
that was the original thought was let's focus on the movies he was
Mhm.
nominated for and he didn't get, but we're going broader than that.
Little broader than that. Yeah, we're gonna again, born Thomas Cruise Mapother the
The
fourth.
4th.
Yes, the fourth, born July 3rd, 1962, not
Yeah,
July 4th, born on the 4th of July, which is one of his films we'll
would
talk
be
about.
fitting.
And
And I
he
guess the reason he doesn't use that name, I guess his dad was a real jerk
Yeah,
and
yeah,
bullied the kids and
yeah, there doesn't seem to what you can find about that, it doesn't seem like that was a good relationship at all, and I know that, if you read into it a little bit, his mom took them and left,
yeah.
at some point when
His
they were
he has
pretty
3
young.
sisters.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's born in Syracuse, spends a little time there, but then very quickly ends up in Canada for
Mhm.
quite a bit of time. And that's really where I think he first gets into drama school, right? He's going to what did he go to? It was like 14 high schools in 15 years or something
Yeah,
crazy
and
like that, moving around a lot.
you know what he was going to be, what his focus was?
Yeah,
The seminary. He
that's
was
right.
gonna be a priest.
He aspired to the priesthood.
Who
Yeah.
would have thought that?
I thought about that at one point too, believe it or not. We had a heavy influence in the household, and
Yeah.
not to mention, our neighbors growing up. That was a lot of
Is he
pressure.
and he's a bishop now.
Yeah, who's got a little higher
I
up
always
there, but
said to mom, "I'd be a priest, but I like girls too much. Sorry."
mm, was that your excuse?
That was my excuse.
So about sixth grade, he comes back to the U.S. and then he graduates from high school in New Jersey. He was going to also take a shot at playing sports. He was a linebacker in football, believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
With his yeah, and, got an injury. So that's also part of the story, but, ends up, like I said, getting into some, theater and, drama through school. It doesn't take very long for this guy to land, a couple of fairly big roles. Not the first, certainly. I don't know if anybody would know the first movie he was in. You, of course, I'm sure know.
Yeah, Endless Love,
Do you
Brooke
have that on
Shields.
4K?
No, no, I don't own that one. It's amazing having gone to so many high schools because it takes a lot of confidence, and I know this
Mhm.
firsthand. When I was in junior high, I had a teacher saying, "Mike, you need to act, you need to go to the theater, blah, blah, blah." I was just too nervous. I was
Mhm.
too scared, and then when I finally got the confidence, I was too old. So
Right,
for
right.
him, that's remarkable.
Yeah, yeah, and he's also, struggling with dyslexia,
Right, which
growing
he
up.
says he claims that Scientology has fixed that.
Yeah, he is, quoted as saying such, yeah. Guy's made nearly 50 films, hasn't
He has
directed a
so
feature
many
film yet.
credits.
Yeah, hasn't
Right,
directed a feature film
that's
yet.
that's odd.
He's been nominated 3 times for Best Actor, and then
And
once for Best Picture, which, of course, was
yes.
Top Gun: Maverick, and we'll get into that as we go along, but, I think I first came to know him or was aware of him when Taps came out in '81, and I don't know that you were familiar with it until more recently.
No, I knew it back then, but not sure I saw it front
Mhm.
to end in a while because I was on the road at that time. I was
Yeah.
touring.
Right. It resonated with me. I was very young at the time, but it resonated with me. It had an unbelievable cast at the time.
Yep.
And we talked about it on the podcast before, but, Sean Penn and Ronnie Cox, George C. Scott is in the damn thing.
Right, right.
So, and Cruise had a pretty, standout performance in that film. A little bit
He
over the top,
did,
but, it was yeah, go
and
ahead.
then the person who noticed him, or I would say discovered him in a way, was Sean Penn.
Mm,
Nancy Klopper, who's a casting director, a very famous casting director, was
yeah.
casting for what came after Taps? Oh, Risky Business, and Sean Penn calls her and says, "You gotta look at this kid, Tom Cruise."
Mhm.
I mean, he was a kid, so was Sean Penn.
Well, yeah, he was, not quite even 20, I don't think, at that
Right,
point, so
right.
very young. It's funny you mention that because, I had recently learned I saw an interview with Cruise, which he doesn't do a ton of interviews. He does the Late Show
The
circuit here
videos.
and there.
Right, he do on his videos, he'll do commentaries.
Yeah, but, I mean, he doesn't do a lot of sort of sit down, kind of in-depth, one-on-ones,
I think, Oprah killed that.
well, it wasn't just Oprah, and we'll get into that. Mike jumping ahead, but yeah, we'll get into that. There was a couple of standout moments, let's say, in the mid 2000s where that kind of became an issue. But the risky business, you mentioned that because in this interview he talked about he was actually going to do Rumblefish.
He was working on The Outsiders when he got the call for Risky Business, and he just got on a plane.
Right.
He didn't even tell Francis, he just said, I'm gonna
Well,
check this out."
he had a very short like window of time to be able to go up and do a taping.
Yeah,
And, he says they saw like 1,000, 2,000 people for the role. It was something kind of absurd.
yeah.
But he was planning to do Rumblefish, and I didn't know that. Mike
This
holding
is
up risky business.
yeah, the brand new, just came out Criterion Collection, stuffed with extras.
Yeah, is it one of these is he watching it in real time?
No, he's giving an interview.
Yeah, I don't love that. I don't love
Yeah,
that. I wanna see them
but
watching the
he
film
does both. I
as
think
I
him
watch
and
it.
Rebecca do a commentary.
Rebecca.
De Mornay.
So, it taps The Outsiders, Risky Business, and then, another we've recently talked about Ridley Scott too, on the show, and the film Legend comes out in '85.
Never seen that to this
Yeah,
day.
doesn't it's basically a flop. Then 1986 hits, and we all know the rest of that story, which, of course, was
Yep.
Top Gun.
At this point, Dan, I'm not a fan.
No, and you won't become a fan for a few more years. And
Yes.
and he will go out of his way to make sure that you're not a fan based on some of the things he continues to do after Top Gun. Color of Money,
Mhm.
Cocktail, where he's portraying this very arrogant,
Cocky,
cocky
with the big
character.
smile.
Right.
It's just
It
I hated it. I hate it. All the Right Moves came earlier, I
Yeah,
think.
and I think perhaps, you're a little bit envious of
It
Mr.
could
Cruz.
be. I
Well,
I'm not
sure.
I'm not above saying that's
No.
true.
Absolutely, but he did lean into that in the portrayal of those characters in those films. I mean, he spent like Color of Money. He's
Right.
so over the top. Even his hair is obnoxious,
Yeah.
in the film. And is there a director he hasn't worked with? Like Orson Welles, maybe is the only director he never had a chance to work with.
Yeah, and Billy Wilder,
Scorsese, Coppola, Sidney Pollack, and
Spielberg.
Spielberg. Yeah, 1988 the film Rain Man comes out, which of course stars him and Dustin Hoffman, which this could have been an episode just about Rain Man.
Correct.
And we've contemplated that in the past.
Yeah.
But there's too much to say about his career overall. And of course, this whole episode is making a case as to why he should already have an Oscar.
Right, and that should
Beyond
have been the first.
it should have been. And so 1988, I'm in high school at this point. I think you're in Florida
I
already at
am.
that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
86.
interesting because I remember, like, you and I connected through this film quite a bit at the time, but I wouldn't move to Florida till 2 years later,
Right.
about a year or 2
But I
later.
was visiting here, and you and I shot a video.
Oh, is that
Do you
what it was?
remember that?
Yes. It's so funny because I didn't know I was gonna bring this up. So, Mike and I, we used to do home videos all the time growing up, right?
Before anyone knew of home
And
video.
this is one that it may live on some tape somewhere buried that we can't get access to right now. But I was gonna bring it up because I wondered if you remembered this. So Mike's visiting Boston at the time,
Yeah.
and we shoot this really ridiculous but hilarious skit parodying, Rain Man, and
Right.
it's the leaving Walbrook
Correct. Walking.
sequence,
I'm in
and we were
front of you.
walking the same 5 feet, the
Exactly.
same
We
5
were in a
feet,
very small space,
and I wondered if you
and we're
remember now.
walking in circles, but you cannot tell on the video that we're walking just in circles.
It's so burned into my brain, I can see it like it was
I
yesterday
can too.
doing that, and
And I
and you
just
were behind
remember.
me with the glasses, real serious.
And then I think I
It's
just,
so
like, cut
good.
off to the side at one point, started yelling, "Son of a bitch!"
Yes, son
Just
of a
from the
that's right, there's a
movie.
famous scene where it echoes through the canyon when
Yeah,
right, right, Cruz gets frustrated, and, and it's funny because I don't know if you've seen recently, Siskel and Ebert, of course,
yeah,
reviewed the film, and both, thumbs up, and, but one of the things they talked about was they didn't go full into it, but they sort of started to kinda make a similar argument about the film,
right,
and but then they just talked about, like, Dustin Hoffman and how it was a very thankless role that he took on. But what I thought was interesting is Ebert mentions, what's very typical in fiction is it's about change. And what was fascinating about Rain Man is you've got one character who can't change
right,
because he's got autism, right?
correct.
And then
So he's like this.
you've got Charlie Babbitt, Cruz's character, who refuses to change, but eventually has this arc
Huge
where
arc.
he does change, and I don't even think they gave him enough credit in the review. If you watch, you can pull it up on YouTube and
Yeah, I'll
see
have
them
to pull
talking
it up
about it.
because for people who don't know who we're talking about, Siskel and Ebert were the
Yeah.
premier movie critics of the '70s, '80s, '90s
Until about May of 2020 when
when the Oh Brother
yours
podcast.
truly yeah, we
But
came
just
to yeah.
the thing about Rain Man is, first of all, if you look at it today, it's a little
Mhm,
bit offensive the way Dustin Hoffman portrays autism because he takes everything to the extreme. And the reason I know that is because in college, a professor we both had, she was my
mhm.
chairperson. She had a practice where it was all autistic, and we visited, and there wasn't somebody anywhere close. These were all people who were housed in this facility. We got to interact with them and talk with them. And there was one guy out of the 25 that was all focused on nail polish. You could see him just looking at everyone's nails. Dustin Hoffman took on characteristics of probably multiple autistic people he had studied.
Sure,
And I
okay.
think that was over the top. I think today people might be a little bit,
Well, it was based on a real guy. It was based on a real guy,
right,
that
but it
character.
was based on a conglomerate of people.
Sure,
I
but
I don't care what they say.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
don't know, maybe because of that experience, it changed it for me, but I
Mm.
always thought Dustin
Well
Hoffman's one note. He's
mhm,
one note the whole
yeah,
time. Cruz goes from this total jerk
mhm,
to to hatred, to spite,
mhm,
to get to this arc where he finally bonds with Rain Man or Raymond. Then they come down, and the end is quite melodrama.
mhm, yeah.
But I
It
went on too much with that, but
yeah, I said this is not a Rain Man episode, but that was a game changer in his career. I mean, we could end the argument right here in our opinion, if you go back and watch that film, or if you haven't seen it for that matter. His performance is just it's phenomenal, and I don't there's been little flashes here and there in films since where he leans into some dramatic pieces, but to me, this still is his best, dramatic performance,
I agree. In
and that
fact,
includes Jerry Maguire, which was
right.
good. So, let's move away from Rain Man, as much as an impression as that left on us, but
Yeah.
then you have, like, just go through the series of films after that, The Born on the 4th of July, then Days of Thunder in 1990, where, of course, he meets his future wife, Nicole Kidman.
Okay,
Uh,
they had already met, but
Rob
Paul Newman turned him on to race cars.
Yeah, Robert Duvall starred in, Days of Thunder with
Okay.
I mean, I don't know leading up to that. I mean, I guess Top Gun, he was driving motorcycles and all of that, so he wasn't new to that, and I think he was a risk taker from a young age too. He talks about jumping off the roof as a kid and doing all of this sort of stuff, so he had it in his DNA
He's done
anyways,
some
but,
crazy shit.
Few Good Men, The Firm,
Wow.
that's, 1992, 1993. Diversity, the versatility of the roles that he's
Yeah.
choosing here is
In The
phenomenal.
Firm, he played a character, Mitch McDeere, and you know why I went to law school. It was based on an actor, not
Mhm.
Cruise, but it was based on Al Pacino's performance and all,
Mike making it about And Justice for All.
no, I just wanna draw a parallel because Cruise, I think he played Mitch McDeere in The Firm. I think he did the same thing for people probably younger than me, got them to go to law school because of the way how good he
Mhm.
portrayed being a lawyer
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
being a
love The
good
Firm.
guy lawyer.
Yeah, I love that movie. Again,
And
that was
there's a sequel out now. Grisham wrote a sequel to it.
speaking of which, so Sidney Pollack directed that.
Yeah,
Am I remembering correctly? Was Sidney Pollack in Eyes Wide Shut too? He was.
absolutely. A
Right,
big, big role.
so there's a connection there. I had
Yes.
forgotten about that. Then 1996, big year. We got Mission Impossible franchise kicks off, right? And then, of course, Jerry Maguire, which, as we mentioned at the top, this is one of the 3 actor noms that he has.
For all 3 of those, he won the Golden Globe,
Mhm.
but he gave
Yeah.
them back, and this is way before the inclusion stuff that's going on right now. He gave them back because he felt the Academy wasn't diverse enough. They had no African American members, period. So
Mhm.
Tom Cruise gave away his 3 Golden Globes, gave them back
Yeah.
for that reason.
Well, so 1996, I just mentioned, so then he disappears for a few years, right? Him
Hmm,
and his wife, and
why?
something's going on between
Right.
'96 and 1999, which is, of course, the filming of Eyes Wide Shut with Stanley Kubrick, who you, of course, you've got your, Clockwork Orange poster behind you.
Yeah, and you can see
And this
Eyes
Yeah, you
Wide
see Eyes
Shut.
Wide Shut behind you, and this could be, again, a whole episode on just Eyes Wide
Yeah,
Shut and all the controversy and the stories that came out about his and Nicole Kidman's marriage, and the filming of the movie led to the demise of their marriage. Like, nobody really knows the truth other than them. So,
right.
and in fact, they dispute that in some interviews that I've read. But
Yeah, I don't they don't take shots at each other in the press. They're
no, not at
they
all.
still have a couple of kids together,
Yeah,
that they adopted, and
right.
so they're still co-parenting.
Yeah. So now let's bring it to some controversy. 2005. Now, we've talked about on the podcast a lot, okay? So to make this argument, you got to separate the art from the artist, which we always talk about. Well, it was 2002. He's starting to be a little outspoken is probably too much of a word, but you mentioned earlier his involvement with the Church of Scientology. So his publicist at the time is kind of like, don't
Right,
lean into that, kind of
right.
keep that quiet. Probably not going to do good for your image. So he fires his publicist at that point and hires his sister, Leanne. You mentioned earlier, he's got 3
Yes.
siblings. And then 2005 happens. And it's just really heated exchange, very awkward exchange between him and Matt Lauer on the Today Show.
Mhm.
Matt Lauer would end up in his own controversy years after that.
Yeah, much
So
worse.
who's got the last laugh on that one, I
Right.
suppose. So there's this real heated exchange during that interview. Yeah, it got into this whole conversation about psychoanalysis, and part of it was Brooke Shields
Yes.
had come out talking about taking medication to help her through, as you said, postpartum depression.
Yes.
And he was opposed to it. He didn't believe in it. And so he said as much in that interview with Matt Lauer. So they go back and forth, and they never really agree to disagree. It just got more and more awkward. And Katie Holmes was in the wings on the couch
Right.
watching this whole thing. That was his girlfriend or wife at the time. I don't know if they were married, but that was
No,
his.
not yet.
No, it was his girlfriend. Yeah, they were getting married. Then he's on the Oprah show where he does this kind of, sort of wild, sort of jumping up on the couch and
Right.
professing his love to Katie Holmes, which you look back now, it's so innocent and so
It's
ridiculous.
tame.
The guy was in love, like, who cares?
Right.
Why they
But
made such a
people
big deal about it, I don't
it
even
turned
know.
off people a lot.
I don't even know why. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? Of all
It's
the
not
things that have been done in the
right.
world, I'm not
Yeah.
sure that did any favors for War of the Worlds, which, of course, was out. He was on the circuit promoting it, Spielberg,
Right.
right? And then also at that time, that leads to the end of what had been about a 14-year deal with Paramount because
Right.
of they're like, "You know what? This guy, like, we gotta get step away
Too
from
much
this."
Scientology nonsense.
Exactly. So he fires his sister, Leanne, at that
Yeah.
point,
Wow.
because of all the stuff going on. And then he gets into a partnership with MGM United Artists and,
Mhm.
goes on to make, some other films, of
Who
course.
who do you know the woman he partnered with to take over the, Mission Impossible series?
Paula Wagner?
It.
That
I
was
was
his producing partner
okay, that's who it
because it was
is.
Cruise Wagner Productions
Yes, okay.
is who I think you're
And I
thinking about.
really think, you mentioned he hasn't directed a film yet. I think
Mhm.
those Mission Impossible films are his babies. I
Yeah.
think he calls every shot.
You know what's interesting about that? They talk about the James Bond franchise, right? This the Mission Impossible's his James Bond, but the
Correct.
interesting difference is how many different actors over the years have played James Bond. Ethan Hunt, you got one,
Right.
right? And
And he's about or next year, his 8th
Dead Reckoning
iteration.
2. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty phenomenal, but so he splits from, Paula Wagner as well at around that same time. 2011, he enters back into a deal with Paramount, and then Ghost Protocol comes out, which at that time, coming off of MI3, that had been the worst in the franchise up
I
to that
liked
point.
MI3, believe it or not, with,
A lot of people didn't. But
no, I
Ghost
like
Protocol was a game changer. MI4 was a game changer. In fact, it's funny, you remember I think it was in the beginning of that film when he's running away from an exploding wherever he
yeah,
was, the
and he hit
Kremlin
the
or
car.
I don't know what it was, but he's doing the typical Tom Cruise run that he does in every film he's in, and he's wearing a Bruce Springsteen concert shirt that blew my mind when I was in the theater and saw it for the first time because it was a bootleg shirt that you and I bought in the parking lot of Giant Stadium in 1985,
That's funny.
and there he was wearing it's the same one that Courtney Cox is wearing in the Dancing in the Dark video. Go Google it. You can look it
I
up on
gotta check
YouTube.
that out.
And I was just it was so random that he was
Is this
wearing
when
it.
he's running and the explosion hits and he gets, like, thrown into the car?
I think so. I think
I
that's the
mean,
sequence, yeah.
that looked
I believe
brutal to
so.
me. I don't know if they had a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sponge car or whatever, but
Right.
that looked brutal.
So we've been talking about a lot of the films that he's been in, but you mentioned you were going to bring up some of the roles that he's turned down famously in his
Yeah,
career.
and
Name throw some of
I've got
those out there.
8, and
Wow.
I
Okay.
could see him in all of these roles.
I only wrote
First,
down 3. I only have 3.
I got 8. A
Okay.
Beautiful Mind,
Okay. I didn't know
wound up
that.
going to Russell Crowe. Edward Scissorhands,
Oh, I can't see that at all.
wound up I could, but went to Johnny Depp. Donnie Brasco went
That would
to
have been interesting.
Leo, right?
I don't think he's ever worked with Pacino.
Footloose is probably on
Yes.
your list.
Yes. Kevin
Kevin
Bacon, of
Bacon.
course.
Ghost, A
Patrick Swayze.
Indecent Proposal. He would have kicked off the MCU with
Iron Man.
Iron Man. And the
Pretty
last
cool.
one, Shawshank Redemption.
Hank Redemption. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
That probably would have been an Oscar for him.
Wow. Yeah, that's wow, that's wild. Okay, that's a pretty good list. But he's done okay for himself. I mean, the guy's films have amassed billions
Right.
of dollars. Just Top Gun Maverick, which let's talk about that for a second. So, COVID hits, right? 2020, we all know what happened. I don't think it's too far fetched to say he was at the center of getting us back into theaters. Now, you could say Christopher Nolan, because Christopher Nolan's Tenet was, I think, one of the first big films
Yeah.
to be released in the theaters. When I forget what year that came out. In fact, Tom
Yeah.
Cruise's video of him going to see the premiere of it
Oh,
with
right.
a mask on and everything, and but this we talk about controversy. I think this worked in Tom Cruise's favor, which is this audio that gets released
Mhm.
while he's, on the set of,
Mission
wa was it
Impossible.
Dead Reckoning?
Yeah.
You're back there in Hollywood making movies right now because of us! Because they believe in us and what we're doing! I'm on the phone with every studio at night, insurance companies, producers, and they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs, you I don't ever want to see it again! Ever!
You know, there's some crew that are violating the protocols.
Not wearing masks.
Right,
They're all hovered around a computer.
right, and there's this famous audio that got released of him just berating them, screaming, yelling, but if you listen to it, he's talking about he says at one point, "They're back in Hollywood making movies because of us, of
Right.
what we're doing here." And, he's looking out for people's families and their livelihood and all of this, and that production, if it gets shut down, there's a lot of people out of work that
Yeah.
can't, buy groceries and pay the bills and whatnot. So,
And it did get shut down. That movie did get shut down for a short period of time.
as did everyone at that
Right.
point. But this
Right.
was different than, say, Christian Bale going off on a lighting guy
Correct.
on the
And
set,
I think you're
you know?
right. Any interview with him, his passion for what he does comes through
And his
so
passion
strong.
and specifically for films, making films intended to be seen in the theater. That's what he's all about.
He's making movies that people wanna go see
Mhm.
instead of something like Far and Away that was
And we
kinda
talk about
horrible.
risky moves, Top Gun, Maverick, he holds on to it, right? Couldn't release it to streaming like so many studios were.
Right.
Disney, that's all they were doing,
Right.
fucking Disney Plus, every other goddamn movie let's put it on the streaming. He said, "No, this film," and this is not a film to be seen, like, on a small
Correct.
screen,
Even if you
so
have a large TV,
even if you have a large TV, right.
this is made for the cinema.
So he says no, holds out, and the thing has made what, almost a billion and a half dollars at this
You know,
point.
that whole holdout time, I'm like, "Wha it's Top Gun, come on," because I
I know,
wasn't a
well,
big fan of Top Gun.
but this is what I'm saying, in right, a movie, it's what, 36 years later or whatever it
Yeah.
is, that usually doesn't go very well,
No,
but
but this did.
clearly, I saw it in the theater, you
I did
saw it,
too.
and we liked it. He has not been one to be a fan of sequels, clearly.
No, other than Mission
Minus
Impossible.
Mission Impossible, right? The franchise there, but this just worked. It just
Mhm.
worked. And it was, I don't know, it was something about, usually when you lean into the nostalgia like that, it doesn't work. For some reason, they got it right in this
Yeah,
film, and Val
and
Kilmer coming back
right,
was
I was just
really
gonna say that.
emotional, and,
Yep.
so there was some drama, Jennifer Connelly. It was just an overall good film, and again, the box office,
A
supports that
and for
fact.
people who think that, wow, his name jumped right out of my head after you
Tom
just said
Cruise,
no, his
Val Kilmer.
partner, Val Kilmer. For
Yeah.
people who think Val Kilmer was acting, he was not.
No.
That's his
Right,
real
he's
voice. He has a, you
got
know,
the
voice
affliction, right.
box, the whole thing, and at one
Mhm.
point, he had to use the computer to he types a message that,
Yeah. In
"We
this
need
scene.
Maverick," something
Right,
yeah, in
right.
the scene.
And it worked. It got me. It got me,
Me too, and I you know me, I'm about as emotional as
Exactly.
a carrot.
So, look, the number of pictures he's been in, like I said, he's almost been in 50 films. He's got, another film in production or in development, The Gauntlet, with he's doing with Christopher McQuarrie, who, um,
Didn't he do a
they
Bond?
did Valkyrie together in 2008, which
Okay.
was kind of sort of a resurgence and a real strong partnership that they filmed, because they would do several movies together after that,
Mhm.
um, to get out of that quagmire he got into with all the 2005 controversies. So it was kind of a very important relationship creatively that
Right.
he formed. So They've got a film that is slated to be coming out. I think it's in, like, pre-production or something. You know how
Oh,
that
okay.
goes.
Yeah. I mean,
You
from
you
what
mentioned
I
Dead
know.
Reckoning 2.
Right,
Also, the sequel to a film I finally just watched
right,
that came out, like, 2014 or something, which was, Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat. It's Live, Die, Repeat, Repeat
right.
is in
And
development. It's in development.
that was lost to COVID, but
Mhm.
they still all of them, Emily Blunt,
Yeah.
Tom, they all talk about doing it.
And Top Gun 3
The only
for it to work.
problem I had was,
You think
Kelly
Maverick dies?
McGillis. No,
Maverick dies?
Kelly McGillis not being in it.
Mhm.
You know, she was such
I agree, I
a force,
agree.
and I think they coulda used her in some way.
I agree. I think that's a slight there. I don't know the story or
No.
what happened there. She was even reached out to, like, who knows? But
50 years from now, Tom Cruise is gonna be like Gregory Peck, Jimmy
yes,
Stewart,
right.
those iconic Humphrey Bogart,
He
Edward G.
is that for us
Robinsons.
today.
He kind of is in present day, but can you imagine 20 years from now looking back on some of the stuff he's done?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
God knows what he's got in store for us.
And this is not to say that Tom hasn't had a few dogs in his
Right,
resume. He
right.
certainly has. Night and Day for one
Oh,
with,
that was terrible.
Cameron
Cameron
Diaz.
Diaz,
I
yeah.
couldn't even get through the film, it's so bad, but,
No.
which I think was filmed up in Boston, actually, if I'm not mistaken, or some of it anyways. But I would go back and argue just his performance in Rain Man alone should have garnered him an Oscar win. Not
Absolutely.
a nominate he wasn't even nominated for it, Mike.
Exactly.
Not even nominated for it, and you and I have talked about this so many times over the years, and I think it was just I don't wanna say a sympathy, that's not the word I'm looking for, but you mentioned Dustin Hoffman, one note, that might be a bit harsh, but, to just discount Tom's performance in that film
And
because of the focus on Hoffman's character, I just don't think that's
he
fair.
couldn't have gotten the supporting actor role because it wasn't a supporting role. He
No.
was, if anything, they could have given Dustin Hoffman the supporting role.
Well, and therein, I think, lies the rub, is that they weren't gonna do that.
Right,
Dustin Hoffman's too big an actor at that
right,
point, and Tom Cruise was obviously a superstar
right.
at that time, but not didn't certainly have a resume, as Hoffman had at that point, The Graduated, Midnight Cowboy, and all that stuff, so,
Correct.
but
So,
I stand by that. I still think that was a huge oversight,
do I
but
get your top 3 now?
Rain Man is right at the top. It's hard not to pick Jerry Maguire. God, I really like The Firm. I really, really like The Firm, and I love Risky Business. So that's a hard toss-up right there for me, but I'm gonna go with The Firm, and then my 3rd is Eyes Wide Shut, a film that most people wouldn't pick.
No, I just rewatched it. It diverted me on a Stanley Kubrick kick. I started to watch his movies
Yeah.
because I was so fascinated by the extras. But
Mhm.
for me, Rain Man's number 1, Eyes Wide Shut number 2. It's just a different, it's a rhythm that is unlike any other film that
Mhm.
he's done, and even Kubrick. But the 3rd one I struggle with, but I'm
I'm
gonna
curious.
land on The Firm.
Wow, that's
I
unbelievable.
can't believe you
That's,
picked those 3.
that's amazing. I love it. I love
Can't
it.
believe it.
You heard it here first, folks, on the Oh Brother
And I'll
podcast.
say this, people always say the
Wow.
book is always better than the movie. In this case, the movie was better than the book,
Yeah,
and I've
yeah,
read all of Grisham's books.
Grisham's, yeah, and you think of the people he's had the good fortune to work with. I mean,
Right.
the list is so long.
Yep.
Nicholson and Pollock and Paul Newman and it just on and on and on.
Yeah.
But not Pacino. That we gotta get Tom and
Yeah.
Al together in a film, and maybe who knows, maybe he'll finally get that Oscar win. But The Firm,
Well
Gene
well,
Hackman
ironically
Gene
ironic
Hackman in The
I
Firm, my
know.
god, is he good in that.
Ironically, Al Pacino wins his one and only Oscar for one of his
Hoo-ah.
yeah, for one of the worst movies he's done.
Well, it's because they knew he should have won it long before
Right.
that,
He should have won for Godfather
Of
Part
course.
2 easily.
Of
That shouldn't have
course.
even been a debate. What was the name of that movie with when he was,
Scent of a Woman.
Scent of a Woman.
Yeah, with,
Come
Chris
on.
Chris O'Donnell,
Well,
right?
yeah, that was Chris
Yeah,
O'Donnell's big star vehicle, and
yeah.
look where he is
Maybe
now.
the last one too. The last one he had. And now we didn't even speak about the guy's literal risk taking in life. So
Yeah,
if anybody goes to an extreme to bring you entertainment, it's Tom Cruise. Nobody holds a candle to this guy
no.
when it comes to action. I mean, he's an unbelievable pilot. You saw him in the building in Dubai, the Top Gun Maverick. That's him. Like, it's just insane the things like you said that he's doing. And they could have picked anybody, Mike,
Yeah,
anybody at all to
yeah,
conclude the Paris Olympics, but they chose Tom Cruise,
right. To he did the handoff from Paris to LA
which is
because it's in
kind of
LA.
phenomenal when you think
Yeah.
about it. Like, why? It's been a couple of years as of this recording that Top Gun Maverick came out. It could have been anybody.
How many stars are iconic as he is?
Okay.
You know? That
Yeah,
I
but
I think,
you don't
that's
think
it.
Beyonce? Like, I mean, there's other people they could have
No,
thought of.
but, he made a stunt out of it, jumping off the
He
roof.
did, and I guess that's where it comes down to
Yeah.
is yeah. Now there's some genres that he has not well, you know what? He actually now I say he's got an uncredited role in Young Guns.
That's
I was gonna
right.
say he hasn't really done a Western, but anyways, but his resume is so diverse. He's done almost everything you could think of, and again, they haven't all been hits.
I don't think you've seen Lions for Lambs, which is he plays a
No.
senator. I like that one.
Right, right.
You
That
could
was the
tell
first film, I think, when he got with MGM and United Artists,
maybe, yeah.
was that film, yeah.
There was a chunk of time where it seemed like he was going after the Oscar. Jerry Maguire, Born in the USA. Um, why did I say that? Born on the
One of
4th
the
of
4th of
July.
July.
And Magnolia, I was gonna watch just his stuff when I
Mhm.
watched it recently,
Yeah,
but he's in almost every sequence. So I was
right,
like, "Screw that. I'm just gonna have to put in the 3 hours."
right.
But
Yeah,
Philip
it
Seymour Hoffman was in that with him, and they teamed up
mhm.
in Mission Impossible 3, and I thought he was a great villain.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the, fact that, this is one of the things I like about Tom is his ability to kind of poke fun at himself.
Right,
He can do comedic roles too. He was funny in Jerry Maguire. He's been
right.
funny in a lot of films.
That Tropic Thunder was a shockingly funny.
It was so funny. It
Most
was
people
so funny.
didn't get him at first. Didn't know it was him.
Right. I think he had a part in one of the Austin Powers films too, I believe.
He
There's the one
was. Gwyneth
right?
Paltrow was in it,
Yeah, there's
a
a
bunch of
lot of
stars.
yeah. So I like that about him too, but, he's just so damn charming.
Yeah.
You can't help but like the guy,
I would have never thought,
and
like,
he's
behind
ageless.
me, there's 13 of his films that I
Mhm.
laid out. I would have never thought I would own 13 of Tom Cruise's films when I saw him in, say, Risky Business, which I now
Mhm.
appreciate much more than
Yeah.
I did back then. Or, the guy from Cocktails. That's probably the epitome of where I disliked him.
That was the point. That's the point of that
Yeah,
character. Same
right,
with Color of
exactly.
Money.
Yeah,
He's just a little bastard that you hate.
yeah.
But, just a great career. I mean, he's, ageless wonder.
And
He
he's
just
young.
turned 62.
He's young, so
Right.
he's got another 20 years to go.
I'm excited to see what else he's got coming. I would like to see another Rain Man type film,
Me too.
just a pure drama, that he takes on because he's kind of steered away from that as of late. I don't know. It looks like a couple of more action films in the queue, so it doesn't look like we're going to get anything like that anytime soon. I also saw, if you look at his IMDb page, I mentioned this to you, like he's going to space. Tom Cruise is going to be
Correct.
on Mars or whatever at some
He
point.
he's already, got a
Something with
scheduled flight
SpaceX.
on SpaceX, yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody's gonna do it, it's gonna be him, but I love Tom Cruise. I've loved him since I was about 8 years old when I saw him in Taps, and Rain Man just was a game changer, just an absolute game changer. It's one
Yeah.
of the best films ever made, I will argue too. I'll go
Rain
that
Man,
far and say it's one of the best films
I
ever.
did a 180.
Mhm.
I hated him, loved him.
You gotta credit some of that to Barry Levinson. I mean, the directing in that film is so good.
coming down the
It
escalator.
it's so good. There's so many
The
scenes in
one
that
we
that are
tried
good.
to recreate or did recreate.
I wish
And
we
there's
could dig that up for the episode. So let's wrap this up. So where are you guys? If where are you? You like Tom Cruise? You hate Tom
Oh,
Cruise?
I'm a
You
huge
know.
fan
No,
now.
I'm asking the audience. Like where
Oh,
do they, drop in the comments. Like what do you think? What are your favorite Tom Cruise films? If you don't like them, why don't you like them?
right.
Do you agree with us that he should have an Oscar?
And
'Cause,
and do you think that his faith gets in the way or
mm.
has gotten in the way?
That's right. We didn't really mention that, but that's a good point to make. Is I know it's not like in the daily headlines with him.
No. It was for a little while when Leah Remedy came out and
Mhm.
really railed against the whole Scientology and him.
But I'm sure if we went back and looked at some of the people that were nominated,
And I think we'd be remiss, or people would think we were dodging it if we didn't bring up Katie Holmes and that divorce and the fact that he doesn't see Suri, his daughter.
we don't know the story. Okay. And what you're gonna get from Wikipedia isn't the truth
Right,
necessarily or
right.
facts, but it seems as though there was just maybe a desire there to not have her get swept up in that whole Scientology thing.
Correct.
Um
And her dad was a
But
lawyer.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that he doesn't see her. I don't think that that's maybe true. I don't know. I wouldn't
Yeah.
make that claim because I don't know that. But it's time to head out, and that's been another episode of the Oh Brother podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from same mother, Mike Smith, and he still wants to say something, folks.
Bye, everyone.